And we are on air and live with this hangout, The Miracle Within, episode 33. And here in the Midwest, it's hotter than blazes and wet and swampy. So, how are you this morning, Barrett?
I'm not feeling personally wet and swampy, so that's a good thing.
Yes, that
But
is a wonderful thing. We put in tomatoes every year, and this year the tomatoes are looking very unhappy.
mm,
They are not thrilled with an overabundance of water, and the cucumbers. Well, we won't even talk about the cukes because they're pretty much a lost idea. So, and I don't think it's even that pervasive throughout the Midwest. I think we're in kind of a band here
hmm
that seems to be getting inundated with rain almost on a daily basis. So it is fascinating how uh, we construct this environment that we are so in love with. My goodness, what a wonderful thing we created for ourselves to have to work our way out of.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of I think Ken Wapnick, one of the course teachers. He said, if we are the creators of this world, which we are, why would we create a world that has so many problems, or why would we create a body that gets aches and pains and falls apart and has illnesses? Why would we set up the situation so that things don't work out very well? And it's a really important question, I think, for all of us on any spiritual path. And I think as course students, we are given an answer, and the answer is because we want something outside of us to blame. This is the perfect kind of definition of victimhood, that we've made up this world of bodies, this Newtonian kind of subject and object place, and it always feels like there's something out there that is not right. And if it only were right, then we would be happy. But it's a very disempowering thought, and it's right at the heart of the ego thought system. So what we're doing as we study this course is we're going to that heart, and we're plucking out this log that is in our eye, and it's going to help us to see more clearly. And it fits perfectly in with that workbook lesson that says I'm not a victim of the world I see. Well, that's an all-encompassing statement. We're never a victim, even though all these circumstances show up in our lives. There's never a time where we're actually the victim, even if it really looks that way. So this is very much an empowering course where we reclaim the power that we thought we'd given away, and we know that choice always lies within.
Exactly. And, rolling forward with that idea, the whole core of everything is, that idea of separation from God. If God is perfection, you step out of God and you're going to obviously step into imperfection. And if God is life and you step out of God, you're going to step into death. And if God is abundance and mercy and joy and truth, as soon as you step away from God, you have created the illusion of all of these ideas that are antithetical to God and to God's nature. So it all goes back to that one core thought of, gee, I'm tired of hanging out with God in the state of perfection. I'm going to go away for a while and be by myself. My goodness, what a set of dominoes we pushed over with that idea. So,
Yeah.
and the other thing that I find interesting about the course is a lot of people get confused around the idea of objectivity. I am me and God is God, and that other person over there is me, and or is not me. And it's really hard. It's really a challenge for us to get to that realization that life in God consciousness, in the state of God consciousness, is abstract and infinite. So you have self in infinitude. So there, you can't look at self as a singular number. There is no one self, because that is completely beyond the concept of God. God has no sense of oneness in the sense of a separate oneness. God's sense of oneness is that infinitude through all dimensions and above and beyond all time. So it really, the Course, gives us a lot of interesting information, but then our own awakening, our own personal journey, our own process of recognition and realization is really what the greatest gift of the Course is, because we have to puzzle these things out in our own way. And, this morning I was looking at chapter 26, the transition, and section 8, the immediacy of salvation. And in the second paragraph, there is a distance you would keep apart from your brother, and this space you perceive as time, because you still believe that you are external to him. And to him, we're talking about the Christ. This makes trust impossible, and you cannot believe that trust would settle every problem now. Thus, do you think it's safer to remain a little careful and a little watchful of interests perceived as separate? From this perception, you cannot conceive of gaining what forgiveness offers you now. So we really have to step out of, all sense of duality and separation. And then it goes on to say, the interval you think lies in between the giving and receiving of the gift seems to be one in which you sacrifice and suffer loss. So we're also inclined to think that whatever we give away, well, it's no longer ours. You see eventual salvation, but not immediate results. Salvation is immediate. What a beautiful thought.
Yeah, and this idea of, our bodies really being our reality, and the distance between our bodies being an obstacle to that oneness, makes me think of the saying that they have in the tube, London's underground train rail station. It says, "Mind the gap," and that referred to the little gap between the platform and the train. You don't want to step in the little gap and get your foot stuck or something. But I think it's a neat idea, because in essence that's sort of what we're being asked to do as we work with this material, is to mind the gap. Notice that feeling of separation. Notice the feelings that go along with it, our upsets, our feelings of being hurt or put upon, and believe in them a little less. So not that we deny what our emotions are, our feelings, but that we come to see that they're rooted in a concept that is ultimately untrue. And because that is the case, all the pressure, all of the responsibility that we give these things, it starts to fall away. And the pain and the sorrow that go along with these problems then starts to fall away too. Sometimes we are in what seems like a very kind of tense or challenging situation, and we might notice someone who seems to be very at peace, even in the midst of the kind of whirlwind of activity. Now, I think that's sort of a good example of how we can be in all of our life. We don't need to get swept up in the chaos that's unfolding. We can actually feel like we're standing in the eye of the storm, even while things are spinning around us. And that is always our choice, even if we're not always aware that that choice is there for us.
Yeah, that's very true. And, that all of this always loops back to that one core idea of belief. As soon as you believe it, you will see it. And, by your beliefs, your world is constructed and motivated and empowered and perpetuated. So we really have to recognize that we are culpable for the world that we have created. But we can change our mind about that. We can go to that realm of our deeper belief and alter our belief. And as soon as we do, the healing, the transformation is instantaneous. And one of the things that I really like around that is that it's a standoff between you and the ego, your true spiritual self and the ego. And if you're always listening to what the ego is telling you, then you're counterpointing your belief. You're shifting your belief to the side of chaos. So all you have to do is when the panic thoughts and the fear thoughts and the worst possible outcome thoughts and nightmare thoughts come up, you have to immediately recognize where they're coming from. And you have to step apart from the ego and make your proclamation on the side of the divine, make your proclamation on the side of the Christ consciousness. And that's all it takes. I mean, we love to believe that it is so intense and so profound and so much of a lifelong journey, this process of awakening. But, you know, we're given an image of Jesus who apparently had this huge shift of consciousness at a very early age in life. You know, we're given the image of him at the age of 12, which means he was stepping into adulthood. He was becoming a man by the culture of that era, being pretty much already awake and confounding the scholars in the temple, because he was interpreting the law correctly, and they were actually just turning the law into this mundane process of making a few bucks on the side and doing very little to actually enlighten the crowds that came there for worship. So it's not a journey that takes millennia and consumes you if you make that conscious choice and if you put your belief in the right camp, not in the camp of the ego, but in the camp of the Holy Spirit, the Christ consciousness, and God.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I sometimes think of time. You know, we kind of have this linear idea of time. You know, it moves from left to right, and we have to go through all of that in order to get to that end point, kind of like you're saying. But it's not really like that, because really we step into all of time from that oneness, from that mistaken idea of separation, and then we step out of it altogether too. So I think I've heard it said that time is not horizontal but vertical, and I really like that idea because it means that it only does take an instant. Sometimes when this topic comes up, people ask, well, if it only takes an instant, how come it seems to be taking me so long to find my peace? And, you know, it is okay, because that's pretty much everybody's experience. The reason that we seem like we're struggling, it seems like sometimes we keep going back to the same problems again and again, is just because we are so afraid. We're so attached to this independent self as our identity that the very idea of relinquishing it, which is really what we're being asked to do, we're being asked to give up our separate identity and to come to know that our identity is only one with God, and that there is no uniqueness in that sense. There is no specialness. These are things the ego craves. You know, the ego needs things to be different. But what we're coming to see is that there is no difference in truth. That all is connected, all is one, and has never been apart. So be gentle with yourself. You know, if it feels like you keep tripping and falling, it's not as important as just remembering that it's always a good idea just to get back up and keep going.
Exactly, and there's also the element of confidence. You know, we have to amp up our confidence in what we are doing, because any shadow of doubt is going to bog the journey down. So that's why I think that there have been certain individuals who are bright sparks in the history of all of this madness who have come across with this profound message of belief and confidence. You know, I mean, Jesus speaking to the sea and says, "Peace, be still," and the Sea of Galilee becomes placid. And there are countless other stories of that sort throughout all spiritual paths. It's the confidence that you have in stretching out your arm to part the Red Sea so your people can cross. And if you vacillate with your confidence, then a lot of people are going to get drowned, and they're probably not going to be happy with you for the next incarnation that you collectively experience. So it really is important that when the voice of doubt and fear comes up, you confront it over and over again and establish your confidence in the reality that God's perfection prevails in your life. You know, you don't get into that silliness of, oh, I want to manifest this, and oh, I want to manifest that, and I want to be a millionaire, and I want to drive a brand new car and have a hot chick. I mean, you know, all of that stuff has absolutely nothing to do with having the perfect life. The perfect life is to embrace the life that God gave you and to have the confidence to see it become manifest.
Nice. I like that. I also want to bring in another reading from the Course. This is in chapter 24, called The Christ in You. The Christ in you is very still. He looks on what he loves and knows it as himself. And thus does he rejoice at what he sees, because he knows that it is one with him and with his Father. Specialness too takes joy in what it sees, although it is not true. Yet what you seek for is a source of joy as you conceive it. What you wish is true for you. Nor is it possible that you can wish for something and lack faith that it is so. So what Jesus is saying here is that if we want to believe in fear, if we want to believe that that car and that hot chick will make us happy, if we want to put our faith in the things that are fleeting and temporal, then we'll believe that that is the case. We'll believe that those things really will make us happy. The only problem is, he says, is it's not necessarily the truth. You know, we've had, all of us in our experiences, so many times where we have placed our faith in something working out, and then sometimes it does. And what happens? Maybe we're happy for a minute, maybe we're happy for an hour, maybe even a day, and then the happiness starts to fade. Then all of a sudden the ego is looking for its next fix. The next set of circumstances that will really make it happy. That last one wasn't it, you know. It's always shifting its goals, and they're only ever fleeting and temporarily reached. So what we want to do is we want to set our goal on something that doesn't change. And that changelessness is our truth. That perfect love is our truest nature. So as we set aside all of these fleeting goals, it doesn't mean we can't have money, it doesn't mean we can't have a car, or, you know, all those things that we think would make us happy, but what it does mean is that we don't believe that they are the source of our peace. We don't believe that not having them will take away our peace. That's the really unflappable changelessness that Jesus exemplified, and that he talked about when he said, you know, do not build your house on the shifting sands of time. You know, build it on the firm rock of truth.
Very, very true. And looking a little bit further in that same passage, it says, rejoice, you have no eyes with which to see, no ears to listen, and no hands to hold, nor feet to guide. Because, you know, this is all manifestation of the ego. Our own eyes, our own vision, our own hearing, our own whatever. And it goes on to say, be glad that only Christ can lend you his while you have need of him. So once you start to make that step across into releasing the ego, the Christ consciousness comes in and fills that space. And all of a sudden you're seeing the world through the eyes of Jesus instead of through the eyes of the ego, and hearing things that are quite lovely to listen to rather than, the cacophony of chaos that we are always surrounded by in this material world. So there is a profound shift, a profound next step that opens up to all of us as we make that conscious step away from the ego, because the only thing that's going to be there is the Christ, and so that means we're stepping back into the Christ for the rest of the time that we're working here in this material realm.
Yeah, it's a beautiful vision, and I think it's really what the Course describes as the real world. And it is something we can achieve. I think a lot of times people look at these exalted states of being, without any fear, without any suffering, and they say, "Well, sure, that was great for Jesus, but I'm never going to be there." Yet Jesus Himself told us, in the Bible, all this you can do and greater things. He wasn't just making that up. He wasn't just pretending. He was saying that He's no different than any of us, even if He's a little farther along the trail than we are. So really know that this message is for all of us, that there's none of us that this excludes. There's none of us that are incapable of this state of being. And in fact, there's none of us that haven't really achieved it, even if it's not a part of our awareness yet in time. That linear time may still keep unfolding, but again, outside of that linear time, all of this is over and done. And we don't need to fix a problem that never really existed, except in a dream. So start to wake up, start to realize that you are just dreaming, and then you can just have some fun. You don't have to make the things here so heavy and so sad. Yeah, I just love that message.
Yeah, it's definitely not an ordeal then, but rather an opportunity to express and share with yourself, because you're all surrounded by yourself. So all of these people that the ego says are separate, they are gaining the benefit of your joyous experience, even though you may not be fully aware of that, and they may not be fully aware of that. So that's the other beautiful thing about it. Every good thought you have benefits yourself in infinite form and fashion.
Yeah, so I think, a nice kind of ending thought as we start to wrap up here is just to imagine that the Course is sort of like a lullaby that's being sung to you in your sleep. And it's not really the truth, but it is helping us to remember that we can kind of gently come back to the truth. So if someone was singing you a beautiful lullaby to help you wake up nice and gently in the morning, it would be a very peaceful and happy way to awaken. So let this be that reminder. Let the Course be that gentle song that lifts you out of your sleep and helps you to open your eyes.
And it absolutely will perform that function in your life. You can have absolute assurance that all it requires is your determination to stay true to the Course, a little pun there, and the whole thing will shift. Your whole world will shift. Well, Barrett, are you going to get out there and rock and roll this weekend, or what's going on?
Yeah, I've got a couple things popping, so I'm looking forward to that. I got a class on the chakras that's starting on Saturday. So any Chicagoans who are interested, you can check that out at my webpage, barretthadeen.com. Yeah, I'll probably just get to enjoy some of this really nice hot baking weather too. So yeah, hopefully you get to get out there and have some fun this weekend too.
Absolutely, and just make sure that you take your Edge or Off or one of the mosquito repellents, because we're hot and damp here, and the mosquitoes are going to be in a frenzy, I think.
All right,
So
I'll get
something to look forward to.
Yeah, the high percentage DEET. I'll just cover it all over myself.
Yes, That's the most advantageous approach to take. Well, Barrett, I will see you and chat with you in 1 week.
All right, sounds good, Chris. You have a good one.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.